Welcome to another exciting series for tonight's Highland Park live interactive webinar. It's so great to see you. This is our favorite time of the day where we get to spend an hour with our favorite group to share content, get tips and tricks, do live Q&A, to network and to collaborate. I am sure this is another fun, inspirational, and informative call to all of you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Lizelle. I'm the customer service and sales manager here at Highland Park Lapidary. I wanted to officially welcome you to our 42nd Highland Park live interactive webinar. Thank you for always showing up on this call. And I wanted to welcome and acknowledge as well all our customers and followers that are streaming with us live, both on our Facebook and YouTube channel. Thank you so much for always tuning with us. Okay, so for our audience here tonight, who are brand new on this call, please, at the bottom part of your Zoom, there is a chat icon. Please put new so we can say hi to you. All right. Hello, Al. Hi, Rick. Hello, Steve. Hi, Guillermo. Hello, Francine. Hi, Dale. Hello, Jennifer. Wow. Thank you so much, guys, for always tuning in. And I wanted to take this opportunity to promote our biggest and longest sale of the year, our Black Friday sale. So please, for those of you who haven't checked out their shopping cart, now is the time. All right, so we're super excited for tonight's series. It is all about learning the art of gemstone faceting. And we are so honored to have him as our guest speaker for tonight. He has been working in the gem trade since 2013 as a gem cutter, buyer, seller, and jewelry designer. He has trained around the world in the various traditions of gem cutting and is currently working on a book about the history of colored stone faceting. He also writes articles, produces videos, and give talks about gem cutting history. The wizard gem cutter. Everybody, let's welcome our guest speaker, Justin K. Prim. Thanks, Justin. And for your questions later, you can raise your hand by going into our reaction icon at the bottom part of your Zoom and click raise hand, or you can also post your questions via chat. So I know everybody is excited. So let's give it up to our speakers, our CEO, John Rowland, our general manager, Sherman Rowland, together with Justin to kick off tonight's live interactive webinar with our intro video.
It was
All right.
great to see you here tonight. And I'm so thrilled that we have Justin here. Justin and I spoke yesterday, and total rock star. Like, who in the chat, who knows who Justin is? In the chat, just say yes if you know who Justin is, because I know some of you guys do, because you've been calling me.
Yeah,
I see a lot of yeses.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Yeah. Like, I'm thrilled to have Justin here. One of the visions that John and I've had is really introducing and supporting people that are doing amazing things. And Justin, I think what you're going to see tonight from him is you're going to learn a whole lot. He brings a very sophisticated perspective on faceting, and also has a terrific historical understanding about faceting, and in fact of the whole lapidary hobby. I researched it really back to the 1300s, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I've basically got really curious as to kind of how did it all begin, and I started, pulling that thread, and the thread has been going now for about 6 years, and it's not. I don't find that I'm getting closer to the top of the rabbit hole. I'm just going down into it deeper and deeper. So it's been cool.
Well, one of the things we just discovered tonight is Justin and I were born in the exact same hospital in Ohio. What are the chances of that? So another person from Ohio, and although you grew up mostly in Chicago and then, of course, around the world,
Yeah.
why don't you talk to us a little bit about, your journey and how you got here, because it's a great story.
Okay. Well, I've been traveling across the country this year, and I've been really reconnecting with my own story. So I started gem cutting probably, I think I was 30. I was looking for a life change. I had just moved to San Francisco. I had a new job, and I met some people that sort of took me into the gemstone world, or showed me the gemstone world. I had never experienced it before. I didn't really even understand that there was this thing called lapidary. I had a rock collection when I was a kid, and I was into fossils and minerals. But then when I became a teenager, like rock and roll, I found rock and roll. Instead of rocks, I had rock and roll. And then, I forgot about like science, and I forgot about the gemstones and stuff, minerals. And then when I was 30, I was immersed into the gemstone world via a friend, and then a trade show around San Francisco. And I saw faceted stones for the first time, and I was just like, wow, like, what is this? How do they do this? Because if you've never seen it before, it's tiny, right? And you're looking at it and you're like, the stone's tiny, but the facets are like almost impossible to see if you haven't seen it before. And you're just like, how is it possible that they can do all this geometrical stuff on this tiny, tiny scale? And I wanted to learn how to do it. Like, instantly, my mind went to, I want to do that. And I was very lucky because I looked up, how do you learn how to cut stones? And I've discovered there was such thing as a lapidary club. And it turned out that there was a very good lapidary club, like 10 blocks from my house in San Francisco. So I joined the club, and I rode my bike there like every day, sometimes 2 times a day, before and after work. And for a couple of years, I just spent my whole free time immersed in that world, and learned how to do cabs, learned how to, do the sawing and the slabbing. And then eventually, after 2 years, I got into the faceting class that I had been waiting to do, and everything unfolded from there. So it's been an adventure.
Is that the San
ever since
Francisco
then.
Gem and Mineral Society?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
That
I
is
got to go.
an awesome club.
Yeah, I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't realize it until this year, because I just thought, because that club is amazing. Their clubhouse is amazing, and it's a big club. And I just thought all lapidary clubs were like this, that I thought that was the normal. And then this year, since I've been researching the history of American cutting, and I've gone to probably 20 clubs this year, and I've discovered, wow, okay, it's really rare to have a clubhouse, actually. Like, most clubs don't have a clubhouse. They meet in a church or a school or a town hall or whatever. And I didn't realize, that San Francisco experience was really, really special. And I was very happy that I wasn't still living in Chicago when I wanted to get into that, because there's nothing like that. I think in the whole Midwest, as far as I've seen, there's nothing on that scale.
Not on that scale. I mean, that's definitely a big club, although there's definitely some strong clubs, but that club definitely has scale.
Yeah. So
did you ever, when you're there, did you ever see the crazy Megasphere machine? Somebody donated a
th-
sphere machine. It's this insane big machine, and it's still sitting around San Francisco.
yeah, they had one sitting in a corner. Not many people used it when I was there, and
Well, this is in the
I
parking
want.
lot. It's big to fit in the building.
Oh, no, I never saw
Yeah.
that. Maybe
Okay.
it's gone. You know, stuff's
Yeah.
moving around there all the time. So I went back there this year, and I was really so since I was a member, they renovated the entire club, like the whole back room. They got like a $20,000 grant and renovated the whole back room,
Yeah.
and so that was really cool. But then they were like, and I'm like, oh, what's all these weird boxes on the wall? And they're like, oh yeah, the whole club's solar powered now. And I was like, what? Okay, you guys got solar on the roof now? That's pretty sweet. So
Yeah.
you know, it's talking about looking into the future. I'm like, wow, you guys are there, considering that you know, you've been sitting here since 1935, or, you know, 90 years or something. You're still like moving into the future. This is really cool.
Yeah. So you got out to San Francisco. That's where you got exposed. And then how did you end up being in Thailand? You have a cutting factory. So like, how did that journey evolve? Because this is really like for many of the people that are on this call, like a lot of people have dreams about where they want to go with their businesses. So it's great to hear somebody who's been successful and has really scaled and really you've gone, you know, the path that's not necessarily the normal path of, you know, like we're over in Asia, and that's kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, after I started faceting, well, let me back up for a second and say, while I was living in San Francisco, when I was learning how to cut and just getting into it, I didn't know that that's what I was going to do yet. I was like looking for something to do, something new. I had been a bike messenger for like 10 years and I loved doing that, but I was like, I'm getting a little bit older. I'm not sure if I'll still be able to do this like in 10 more years or if I would want to. And so I was looking around and you know, I've always been
A
like a
bike
creative.
messenger in San Francisco on the hills that go like this.
Yes. When I lived there, my thighs were so huge and strong. It was crazy. I'm happy I don't do that anymore. I got really
That's
good at
awesome.
it after 4 years though. I was sprinting up those hills.
Wow.
But I spent a little bit of time while I was living there. I also I do a lot of other creative stuff, but I was sewing a lot at the time. I was making backpacks and doing weird um I don't know, t-shirts and stuff. And I got a job at this messenger bag company called Chrome. I don't know if you guys know this company, but they make backpacks and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is my dream job. I'm going to do this, you know? And I got that job. And then it turned out to not be a very good job. Like it sucked. The pay sucked. It was very stressful. It was hard. And I was just like, yeah, I
Who's
don't
had
want
a
to do
job
this.
that sucked and it's hard?
Well, but you know, normally you don't think something's going to be your dream job, and then as soon as you get it, you instantly realize like, oh, this is totally not what I thought it was going to be like. I don't know, it didn't work for me. Other people, I'm sure, like it, or people that work there. But so after I got a little disgruntled about that, I was like, oh man, you know, that's like what I was going to do. And then I was like, I'm done with sewing, like professionally. You know, I'm not going to do this anymore. And right at that same time is when I did the faceting class. And, you know, so I'm 2 years into cutting already, and I'm starting to facet, which is what I intended to do from the start. And so once I took that faceting class, it was meant to be a 6-month long, like once a week class. And I took one class one day. I was holding out for that day so I could buy a used machine. I didn't want to buy it before I tried it out. I did one class, bought a machine on eBay, went to the second week, finished the first half of my first stone, and I was like, okay, you can give my seat away. I don't need to take the class anymore. Like I need to do this every single day. Like I can't handle this once a week schedule. So I was like, you've taught me everything I need to know for now, and I'll just go from here. But by that time, I had sort of realized I didn't really know anything about stones. Like I knew how to cut, and I was sort of understanding about getting polishing, but I was like, you know, what's this green stone? Like, oh, it's someone said it's jade. Like, what is jade? I have no idea. Like, what's the difference between jade and emerald, or jade and demantoid? Like, they're green stones. I have no idea. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go into this seriously now that the sewing thing didn't work. Let me try and do this. And so I looked into gemology school because I figured that was the way to go deeper. I needed to understand what I was doing. And I looked at all the gemology schools in the whole world, and I was like, I don't want to do GIA. It's really, really expensive. And, you know, but then in the end, I had to do GIA, or I felt I had to do GIA because everyone in America that I talked to said, people in America don't know the other schools. You know, if you go to do the FGA in London, people don't know what that is. Like someone literally told me they got a FGA and then had to come back and get a GG. And I was like, okay, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, how can I mitigate the costs? And so eventually it turned into moving to Thailand, or going to Thailand for a while and doing the school there and doing some of it from home. So I relocated to Scotland for a summer and did half the course from my girlfriend's house. And then I moved to Bangkok and did the other half. And in the process of that, so what I hoped was going to happen, and I hoped this every year for 10 years, I hoped that when I left America, I would find some crazy opportunity to not come back. And that never happened. 10 years in a row, I went to Europe, I went to England, I went all over the world, and that never happened. And then finally in Bangkok, I finished school. And as I was finishing school, I met a guy who I had recognized from YouTube videos, this French gemologist named Vincent Pardue. And I saw him in the lunchroom at the outside of the GIA building. So he was in the lab upstairs and I was in the school downstairs, and I saw him in the lunchroom and I was like, okay, this is the moment, you know? And I said, hey, I'm Justin and I like your YouTube channel. And he's like, yeah, okay, cool, thanks. And then he went away and I was like, okay, well, first step, you know, baby steps. And then I saw him again, like a month later. Richard Hughes, the gemologist, had a book release for his big Ruby and Sapphire book in Bangkok. So I went there, I saw Vincent again, and I met his one of his team members, this guy Wim. And so I started talking to them. I started talking to Wim, and Wim is closer to my age. Vincent is like I think he's not quite my parents' age, but he's older than me. Yeah. And so I started talking to Wim, and we hit it off. And then later I found out that they were looking for a gem cutter for GIA. And so I'm having lunch with Wim one day, and I'm asking him about this, and he's like, oh yeah, you need to go talk to Vincent about this. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I'll make an appointment or something. And he's like, no, he's like over in the coffee shop right now. Like, I'll just take you over there right now. So he walks me over to Vincent in this coffee shop, and he said, Vincent, this is Justin. And he just walked away. And I was like, oh, you know, this is like, and I recognize in that moment, like, this is a key moment.
Those moments in life.
Yeah, if I do this wrong, something's going to happen. And I was at the end of school, so I was like ready to go home. Like, if I don't find something cool, I'm going to have to go home now. And I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to have to go back to the States. So I sat down and I just introduced myself. I kind of just pitched my whole life to him. And he was like, you're the person I'm looking for. And I was like, cool. So I ended up staying in Bangkok. He let me stay at his house for like 6 months or something. And I ended up not getting hired at GIA because he ended up quitting. But in the process of him, you know, taking me under his wing, he introduced me to everybody in town, including, you know, his team. And so one girl,
let me just stop for a second and give a context. So for many people don't know that Thailand, there's a huge amount of jewelry manufacturing that happens in Thailand, huge amount of production. So if you think about, you go to a lot of the malls and that, like, if you want to know where a lot of jewelry made, it's in Thailand. Who's the place that makes all the bracelet stuff that you see in the shopping mall?
Like, yes,
little
it starts
charms.
with a P. Yes.
Yeah, Pandora. Big operation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's huge operations. David German's stuff is made over there as well, I believe. So you know,
it's not just Pandora. Like, Tiffany's stuff is made over there. Like,
Tiffany
all those brands are made over there.
Absolutely.
No, they don't say that, but you know.
Right. So this is important.
Yeah.
It's important for the folks here to understand, like, where you're at. And they don't know that, like, the whole hub of production jewelry and high end is over in Thailand. So you're in like ground zero. That's why GIA is over there.
Right. And that's why I went there. I didn't say that. That's why I chose there, because, you know, I could have gone to Carlsbad. I was in California. I could have gone to New York, but I was like, okay, but I want to connect into an international hub, and I want to, and I'd been to Bangkok once before on a vacation, and I knew what was there. Like I knew what it was like. And I was like, if I spend 3 or 4 months here, like I'm going to know a lot of people. And pretty much, yeah, what I was hoping to happen did happen, because of Vincent. Well, so Vincent introduced me to Victoria, who was his lapidary for his research team. Victoria and I are now married, so I have to thank Vincent for that.
Yeah.
Vincent,
and you
then
say she's a
introduced,
better faceter than you. You told me
yeah,
that yesterday.
she just turned 30, and I will go out on a limb, and I don't say this because she's my wife. I will go out on a limb and say, I believe from all the people I've ever met in the world, she is the youngest master faceter in the world. Like she is the best gem cutter that I have ever met who is not like 75 years old.
Is she on
She
the
can
webinar
do,
night?
I don't think so, because she's in France and she's sleeping. So I can say whatever I want and she's not going to know.
Gotcha. Well, she'll see the YouTube video.
Yeah, so I'll tell her, okay, at 21 minutes, I praised you highly. But but so yeah, so I just started to get enmeshed in the community there. I ended up getting a job at one of the local gemology schools. They wanted, I sort of pitched them a faceting class, because when I went to Bangkok, I was like, how is it possible that in this, because Bangkok is a gemstone cutting hub, and I knew that it's probably one of the biggest in the world other than Jaipur. Yes. You know, there's hundreds of cutters in Thailand, maybe thousands of cutters in Thailand. And I went there and I was like, okay, I'll do a faceting class on the side at night or something. And then there wasn't one. And I was like, how is this possible? There's no way. And so I wanted to start that. And from day one, I was like, I want to connect to factories here and start to be able to like provide that as a service for people in the West to, you know, send me stones as a gemstone cutter who speaks English, to be able to like get stuff cut with the factories. Right. So, you know, it's been 6 years since I moved to Bangkok, and I helped to start a cutting school. And that was a pretty cool thing until COVID hit. I met the factories that I was looking for, and I was able to like, you know, build up business relationships with them and, you know, find the ones that didn't work and then find the ones that did work. And so now I've got these really intimate partnerships with some of the factories there. And you know, Victoria's been kind of there with me. So she's been cutting, I've been cutting, the factory's been cutting, and then I've been teaching this whole time too, or, you know, and as that's developed, or as I've gotten better at it, I guess, then eventually COVID hit and we turned everything into like an online experience. And then that led into me writing a book, because I had time and I had an idea, and then all the pieces clicked together during COVID, and I wrote a gem cutting book, like a design book. And it's been a wild journey.
Yeah, and on that book, make sure, team, later on that we actually put the link up for the book and also QR code so people can also get that, because that be good. And then also the catalog that you have on the video, I would love to see that printed. Like that would be one of the things, like we have access to printers and things over in China. Like that, like you have, it's like you showed the print copy. Guys, it's crazy what he has in his museum. So we got a lot of content tonight, because you also have I think you had some slides that you wanted to cover, correct?
Yeah, we can and just to talk generally about faceting, because I know you guys are until recently, I think you guys are mostly talking about the sort of what I call the lapidary side, cabbing, slabbing, spheres, and then I thought it could be cool just to talk generally about faceting. What's the difference? And you know, because I think a lot of people who do lapidary work and don't do faceting are sort of intimidated by it. Like they're like, oh, math and angles, and you know, it's crazy. And it's like, and I went from, you know, cabbing and sort of freehand carving and stuff into faceting. So I thought it could be cool to kind of talk about that from a lapidary point of view. And I've got all this stuff set up so we can let's just dive into it. And then, you know, folks, put questions on, and team, you've missed some questions in the chat, so make sure those hit the sheet so I can ask them. All right, so how do you want to start, Justin? You want to just start with like, is there Well, I guess let's talk about gear, because I always think it's cool. I think all the lapidary people love to talk about gear, right? So, normally if you're just cabbing, well, and I talked to somebody about this the other day, and they're like, man, it's crazy how little gear you have, because this dude has a whole workshop of a big saw, a little saw, a multi-wheel grinder, and a big buffer. And it's just like, yeah, I've just got this one thing. I've been traveling across America since June with a faceting machine, like with this whole setup. This came with me from Chicago. I'm in California right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just fits up in this little box. So really what I'm carrying with me to do the bare minimum of work is just this one machine, this faceting machine. So this is from Sri Lanka. It's a hand piece machine. So it's a bit different than the normal American style machine, which usually would have a sort of an arm right here. So this one doesn't have an arm. Instead, it has this handpiece, which does the same thing as the mast. It's got angles, so I can sort of turn this thing and get angles. I can turn this thing, which doesn't look like much in the small screen, but this thing rotates my stone around. So if I've got my stone in here, and you guys can see as I'm turning the index gear, the stone twists. So this basically gives you everything that you need, and then this thing goes up and down. So you got 3 controls, angles, rotation, and height. And that's it. It sounds complicated because in cabbing, you just have your hand. But it's essentially, it's not the same thing at all, but the idea is the same. You're gonna hit the machine at some angle and create a flat spot, and you're gonna do that into a pattern and create something really, really cool. I do have something I can show just to give us a visual about this. So the first step of the process is a lot like cabbing. So you're starting with that rough stone. In this case, it's a topaz. And so you have to look at it and figure out what you're going to do. But then, so this first step, the preforming step, it's all done by hand. Like that oval with the flat spot on top and the pointy bottom, I did that by hand. So it's the same skills that I learned in cabbing, how to make a good shape, how to make a good contour. It doesn't have to be as perfect as a cab, because it's just giving me a rough starting point. But then once the preform's done, I will actually attach it to the machine, and then we start going through the process of actually faceting. So cutting it, polishing it, making sure that everything is nice, the meat points are good, the polish is good. And then once it's done, you can see it looks much different than the original rough stone. It's more shiny, it's more sparkly. And, by understanding the sort of the gemology side of things, you can, properly use angles to create this mirroring effect, which is something that you really never see in a cab. The cab is all about the external luster, right? You're getting a really shiny dome and it looks cool. The faceting is about the light going inside, bouncing and coming back. And if you don't do the angles correct, you don't get this nice bounce, the bouncing of light. So it looks like this. This is that preforming step I was talking about. So everything's done by hand. So we're just basically grinding off the rough spots. We're taking out any inclusions. We're normalizing it. So if it's a weird shape, we're contouring it into something more manageable, making it into something that is going to look sort of like the finished product. And then once the preforming step's done, in the case of the handpiece, we've got this handpiece, and we go through the motions of cutting it. So all these different angles, turning the stone around, making sure everything is balanced. And, it sounds more complicated than it is. There isn't really math involved. There's simple counting, I guess, but it's more about looking and proportions, I guess, which is similar to cabbing. If you're making a cabochon, your dome has to be even all the way around, and you have to look at that, and just by eye, you have to figure that out. So, and then here, the final step is polishing. So we switch to a different lap, and then we go through the same sequence that we did to do all the facets, make them shiny. And then finally, we're going to get a beautiful shiny stone. And if we did a good job, everything's symmetrical, everything's proportionate, the light's going in and reflecting and coming back out to make something super sparkly and shiny. And hopefully we've had a really fun time doing that. Some sort of a meditative, creative experience.
That was your wife's hands?
Uh-huh.
Pretty sure it
Yeah, I
wasn't
thought
his.
so.
No, not mine.
Yeah.
My fingers don't look like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got actually some questions that I want to handle right in here. One of them's slightly off topic, but I'm going to answer it. This was actually Jay Boz Dresh. I don't know if I'm messing your name up or not. I know we've talked on the phone before. At what temp should I stop using my trim saw with oil? The saw is in the garage, ambient temperature in Southwest New Hampshire. You're right close to me. We're right up in right by Worcester, Massachusetts. Starting to get cold, 20 to 40 at present, no heat on oil sump. Trim saw is kind of a less of an issue on viscosity than like a slab saw. Any thoughts on that, John?
I wouldn't have a concern about the temperature and not being able to run it. It's just, the oil's going to be cold without any warming it. So that's the only drawback. You won't have any problem with the machine or with cutting. And if you're working on it for any length of time, the cutting action will warm the oil up some.
Especially if it's a small trim saw. Like if it's a bigger one, then one of the things like some of our customers do, like Jan Wade, for example, he's out in Tulsa or somewhere where it gets a little cold there. He has actually a engine block heater he puts on the bottom of his saw, magnetic engine block heaters, which then he can preheat it so he gets his, so he doesn't really have a viscosity issue. So, and those you can get at an auto parts store or buy online, like that, those, but the ones that are magnetic that you go clunk and stick to it on a small, like aluminum cast saw, I don't think that's going to work so well, but I don't think you'd have as much worry in a trim saw. I think it's going to be more of a comfort issue, like cold.
Yeah, exactly.
JP had a question. JP has a couple questions here. I knew JP would be asking questions on this. Any numbers on how big the industry is in Thailand, like numbers of carvers, jewelry makers, and so on, exports, annual exports? It seems like those numbers are kind of impossible to find, and you just kind of get a sense of that. Any thoughts on that, Justin?
I'm sure those numbers must be somewhere. There's a Thai Gem and Jewelry Association that must think about these things. But from my experience, I would say whatever number you find is going to be not accurate, because things, like, just to say Thailand is not the same as America. Things happen in the light, in the dark, in the shadows, in everywhere in between, importing and exporting. I don't know, it's very fluid over there. But from what I've seen, so there's two localities in Thailand. There's Bangkok, there's Chantaburi. Bangkok is like the central, it's the capital. I've been to personally probably at least 8 to 10 faceting studios. Each one could have anywhere from 6 to 20 cutters. And there's more than that. I just haven't, there's a lot of 2-person shops that are just scattered around. And then when you go into Chantaburi, there's also a lot. And those are just ones that are sort of cutting for the public. There's other ones, like, for instance, something like a Pandora. I don't know if Pandora really does this, but like, some companies like that, where they have this mass production thing, they will just have a factory somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And I know that in northeastern Thailand, there are factories like this, and it's like 50 people cutting or doing whatever they do, and they are not open to the public. No one knows that they're there. It's a secret. It's not a secret. It's their company. And, so there's a lot, but I couldn't even put a number to it because I couldn't.
John, I mean, in China, think about like Haiphong and Xiamen. I mean, some of those facilities are like, well, until like the shift happened, those are massive.
Yeah, in the semi-precious stones, I would say in 2010, 80% of that was cut in China.
Mhm.
But it's been a massive shift over this 10 years.
Yeah,
Where
it's
a
left.
lot
It's
of
not in
it's
China
a lot of
as much.
it's a lot of it's gone over to India, and because the cost of importing the semi-precious stones has gotten really ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that Justin was talking about the import tax. So one of the things that really shifted cutting away from China was the government really started putting fairly high import taxation on imported stones. So you could be paying up to 75 cents per kg, and you figure you got a container of goods coming in. That just you're literally paying more tax than you are for the material coming in, and so that's where you saw a lot of that shift out of China on the low end, and now you mostly see tourmalines and sugilite and really high end exotics.
Yeah, you know,
But
it's funny. The same thing happened in London in the 70s. They introduced the VAT, and that included import duties on stones, and like half of the cutters in London just left. Like they
Yeah.
went to Geneva or somewhere else. One thing that I've seen, you know, this I think this is kind of interesting. When you look at all the different cutting hubs in the world, they're all serving a sort of a separate function. You know, like in my mind, India is about cabs and beads and emeralds sometimes. Thailand, you don't see beads. There's no beads made in Thailand, and you see more faceted stones because it's a little bit more expensive. Cutting cabs in Thailand is too expensive, really. And then to me, when I think about China, I've not been there, but from what I know, you know, it's about the melee, it's about mass manufacturing, you know, really huge quantities of stuff. South America's obviously all about emeralds, and then India, well, yeah, India's doing a lot. So it's kind of cool, you know, like they do cross over, but like what I see in Thailand is not what I know of that's happening in India, or so much as what's happening in China. And they're all using totally different kind of faceting machines, you know, like,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and your machine's you said this machine's from Sri Lanka.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then the Sri Lankans, that's a big cutting hub as well. I mean, they're probably some of the best, and partially because they've got a better machine than almost everybody else does for commercial cutting. You know, that the Thais are using a sort of an old school jam peg. So, and they can do great work on the jam peg if they're a good cutter, but they're not all good cutters. So, you know, it really depends. And the Sri Lankans, I think a lot of Americans that I've talked to this year, you know, the mining people that run mines and stuff, it seems like a lot of people are using Sri Lankans. And I wonder if it's because the Sri Lankans potentially have the ability to read the same diagrams that we have, because they're using the same indexing system that like an Ultratech would have, or any of the American machines.
Oh, interesting.
And they speak really good English, where Thailand.
Yeah, no, English is very, like, we work with software companies over in Sri Lanka, and you know, it's actually a big software hub as well. One question also JP had as an added on is do you see machine cutting, like CNC-ish kind of, or like templated cutting happening there for faceting or other types of production automation, essentially?
From what I've seen, I've never seen it in Thailand. I know I know 2 or 3 people personally that have those machines. You know, 1 in Canada, 2 in America. I know Konstantin Wield in Germany has one, a different one. They're super secretive about it, but I've seen a picture of the head of it or whatever. I haven't seen it that much. I think in Thailand, the thing about Thailand is it's about cheap labor, same as India. It's cheap labor. It's cheaper just to get somebody to cut the stone than to get a crazy machine to cut the stone, because it is, you know, but we'll see about that, because things are changing in Thailand, and things are changing everywhere, you know.
That's
so we'll
very,
see.
very true. Well, and in China, like, a lot of people just didn't want to do the job. As the wealth came up, they're like, I don't want a cutting factory. You're going to get silicosis and die there. So there's definitely, like, the younger generation, unless they're really from impoverished area, they're not that attractive to want to do that kind of work.
Yeah.
So
and I think it really depends on the factory. Thailand is the same. It's not necessarily a well-respected job, you know, like being a gem cutter in a factory is probably the equivalent of, like working in the Frito-Lay's factory in Indiana or something, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like it pays well, it pays well, it's consistent. You go to work every day and you do whatever you do. And when my wife worked in the gem cutting factory in Geneva, she said it was the same. Like people liked what they did, but they weren't like super passionate like this. They were just going to work. They had a specialized skill, like a plumber, or like a HVAC guy. It's just like a trade skill. So
I'm with you.
yeah, but if they treat them well,
the machine, one thing Dylan was asking, is it possible, like, because the machine, that type of faceting machine, so the machine that you have there, like, people are asking, like, can you buy those machines here? I assume you can. So, like that,
you can buy them direct from Sterling, and you have to email them to do it. I saw somebody said the shipping wasn't on the website. You got to email them, because the website isn't really a store. It's just some info. But you can order and they will just send them direct. I hope we've got a bunch of machines coming in for the Tucson show, like maybe up to 6 or 10 machines that we can sell. So if anybody wants one and they're going to be in Tucson, come by and you can play with one. And hopefully, if they get here on time, shipping is a bit crazy right now, as you guys know.
Oh yeah. You just have to get ahead of it, get them moving. Like, we just brought in some stuff from Asia, air shipment, and it was expensive too. Matt had a question. Do you have experience with the faceting machine from Summit? Thai faceting machine,
Samsit. I did. So eventually, when I was in Thailand, I did actually find a faceting class, that what I was looking for when I first went there. I did eventually find that. And so I did like a 3-day class. I wanted to learn the Thai style, the jam peg. I really wanted to see what that was like. And, after I moved to Thailand, that's when I started to really think about doing this history project. And I'm looking at all the different historical cutting centers of the world and how the machines have developed and all that stuff. And so I was like, I really want to understand this Thai style, especially because I'm working with Thai cutters. So I did get to use that machine. It's just like the Thai machine is super strange. The base of it is literally a diamond cutting bench from like the Netherlands, right? Some Dutch guy came in the 60s or something and brought this table. And so the Thais used that because they saw that. And then somehow they got a jam peg from a French guy or family. And I haven't yet uncovered this story, but I've been pulling the threads of it. So they took this French jam peg head, which is probably the best jam peg head that there is, and they put it onto this diamond cutting bench that spins at 3,000 RPMs, like this crazy speed, with this copper and steel lap, which is something that nobody else in the world uses for colored stones. This is literally a diamond cutter's lap, like a 10-inch or 12-inch lap. And that's like their secret. They're going super speed, the machine's going super fast, and the jam peg is super fast, once you get good at it. And they're just lightning, they're doing, I don't know, 20, 30 stones a day, or at least tops and bottoms or whatever. But I have used it. It's definitely very hard to use. I learned again this year. I went to England for a week, and I've got a mentor in England now, this very old, from the, we were talking earlier about the company that's, 100 years old. So one of those guys took me under his wing, and he's become a real good friend, And so I came there for a week, and I wanted to learn the English jam peg style. And it's really hard. Like, I'm into it. I want to get good at that, just in my historical exploration, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. It's very hard.
It's not the way to start and build confidence.
No. For them, it takes 6 years to do the apprenticeship. And that's why they told me it takes like 6 weeks just to learn how to dop correctly, because, you've got this big wooden stick and the stone. And if you don't put it in there straight, and then you start doing the jam peg, it's crazy.
So for people that don't know what jam peg is, can you just say what that is?
Okay. So as I was saying with this thing, this is basically a mechanical tool to help us do this job, right? So we can rotate the stone very mechanically. We can change the angle very mechanically. We can raise this up and down. Everything is controlled precisely for repeatability. Now, the jam peg So just imagine if this was a wooden stick. You've got the stone on the end of here. You got this in your hand, and there's like a pegboard basically, and you just stick this in the pegboard, and it comes down and hits the lap, and that's the angle. So whatever hole you stick it into, the jam peg. So that's the only control. So when I was doing this in England this year, every time you pick up the stone, because in faceting you have to pick it up all the time and look at it and see if you've got your facets big enough. So every time you pick up the stone and look at it, and then you put it back down, if you twist your hand in at all, the facets get all messed up. You know, they start getting skewed. So the jam peg is literally, it's the most simple machine for faceting, but
you
it
have
is the
videos on this
hardest.
because I've seen some of the videos
Yeah,
where you talk,
yeah.
you show that. So for those
Yeah.
of you who are wanting to know that, because when I watched, that's where I learned about that machine. Is like I said, that's weird, but it's, you can see that the design is an old design because it's simple,
Yeah.
just a
Yeah,
bunch of
I
different
mean,
angled holes that you're putting your dop in.
I think the earliest reference to that machine I found is like 1819 or something like that. So it's really old. And the guys in London, the one that they're using, it's like, it hasn't changed since 1819. Like it's the same one. It's
Yeah.
not even been upgraded at all. Like they're still hand cranking on the cutting side. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to see it, I have a pretty cool video showing my mentor Ken on YouTube. I think it's called The Art of British Gem Cutting on my YouTube channel. So anyone that wants to see it, check that out. It's really cool looking to see him do that. He's a master of that art.
Yeah.
So
I got the questions are just rolling in here. So we're just going to keep answering some questions here. So tripod setup, thought only Raytech Shaw was doing those. Are they coming back? Yeah, I know that there's a dude out in Colorado that had gotten the Raytech stuff and is, I think, making it. But I don't know any details about that. He's a machine shop, I think in Littleton, if I remember correctly. Do you know about him?
I met him before, but I mean, there's other companies that are doing this sort of tripod handpiece style. I mean, there's a few companies in Sri Lanka that do it. Imahashi in Japan does it.
Yep.
Raytech Shaw. I guess that's probably it now. There was another German company doing it way back in the 90s and 80s, but yeah, probably. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Raytech is still producing faceting machines.
Well, no, I think what they did is there's another guy that
able to get a hold of them.
Bought or acquired those, that part of the business, and he's out in Colorado. Raytech themselves in Connecticut's not making anymore.
Right.
But I know there's another guy that is doing something.
Yeah.
With that.
I haven't heard anyone that's got one recently, but I don't know. I haven't been able to get a hold of him because I'd like to talk to that guy for my, my American research.
Right. No, absolutely.
So far, nothing.
Matt was asking, when will Highland Park produce a faceting machine? That is actually in the works now, and we certainly aim to get Justin involved with that because you have 80 machines right now. 80 faceting machines go. How back do your machines go?
My oldest one is from the 1880s. It's a beautiful piece of furniture. It's French, and it's about a meter by a meter by a meter. It's huge.
Wow.
And it's a 2-person faceting desk, hand crank with the jam peg, like what I was saying. But the oldest American one I have is about 1903. It's a mast. It looks like it looks like the predecessor to any faceting machine that you'd find in America today. Mast arm, rotational angle. The head goes up and down. Really cool. That one's from LA. From like 1903. So
well, and I know your museum right now of those machines is in Thailand, but I think you're aiming to possibly have that be in the States, right?
Yeah, that's my goal for next year. We're thinking about moving out of Thailand now, my wife and I, as we've been making our way across the country and trying to think about what we want to do for the future with the school and with our company and stuff. We're thinking about America, and in my mind right now, Portland is where it's at, Portland, Oregon. And if we relocate there, I would try to, basically combine our faceting school with the faceting museum that we've put together and just allow for people to be able to come and see it, anytime or whatever. That's
Yeah, I
what
mean,
want.
because it's remarkable. The catalog, I definitely, maybe the team, if you can find his YouTube video that has the link around that video on the catalog, put that up in the chat. That's really, really, people should watch that, because your production quality also is just sick on your videos. I love them.
Oh, thank
They're
you.
really good.
Yeah.
Let's see. Go
I've been
ahead.
having a lot of fun with, just because the way that my faceting studio is, the museum shelf or whatever, the wall of faceting machines is behind me. But when I'm at my computer working on my articles and stuff, I can see the whole museum right there, and I just love looking at it. Like I'm not quite ready to not have it at home yet, because I'm still really enjoying
What inspires
interacting
you?
with it. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
really cool.
Dale had a question. The plate and height adjuster moves up and down with a screw. How does the screw work, and what is the arrangement of the bearings? I think he's
The
referring to your
screw,
machine right there.
so the screws inside of here, it's I don't know the technical term for it, but this thing turns and it goes up and down, and it's
Mhm.
fairly fast and it's fairly smooth. It doesn't, it doesn't have any play in it or anything, so
Yep.
it stays fairly steady. And then, you just have to make sure every time you're going to start cutting that all 3 feet are flat, because
Mhm.
otherwise, if you lower it down too much, then the handpiece starts tilting backwards because
Right.
the third foot's not on there. So basically, yeah, there's a big screw in here, a big gear, and
Yep.
as you turn it, it goes up and down. So that's
Yep.
as technical as I can be.
Yep. And then iPhone, you got to get iPhone, you got to get your name on there. I know you've been on here before. We have lots of iPhones. So iPhone was asking, when using the hand piece on a faceting machine like that, are you required to move the piece back and forth, or can I place each new stone in a given grit on a different location to balance the west on the disc? I think that's a misspell. But
Okay, so when you're cutting, I mean, everybody does it slightly differently, but for me, when I'm cutting, I just basically stay in one spot. Like I stay in the middle of the lap. I'm not sweeping so much. I'm just
Mhm.
cutting. I just cut
Mhm.
in and then I check it and it's good. But when I'm polishing, when I switch to the polishing lap, you have to sweep. And sometimes you'll
Mhm.
use different parts of the lap. Like if you're getting
Yeah.
some scratches, then maybe you'll move up here or, in the middle. So in the
Yep.
polishing, I tend to use a lot of different areas to get the scratches out. But in cutting, I pretty much just stay right in the middle. And
Yep.
I vary how far from the center I am just to wear the lap out evenly. But
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about, oh, I need to go back to this spot or that spot. I just,
Right. And he was actually saying balancing the wearing on your
yeah,
disc.
exactly. And so, and
Yep.
I'm using a centered lap, so this becomes important. Like I don't want to groove it more than I otherwise would. You'd like to
Right.
you'd like to wear it evenly so you can keep the
Right.
lap moving
Yeah.
or living.
And then Rick was asking, can you compare the mobility of the handpiece machine to the fixed mass machine? Like I've been thinking that question as I'm watching this, and I was looking at your other videos.
Yeah. So for me, so I originally learned on an American machine. Like I had an Ultratech, then I had a polymetric. When I moved to Thailand, I brought my polymetric with me, which is a regular massed style machine. And I only started using this when we started to open the school, because in the school we decided we were going to use these machines to teach on.
Mhm.
And in the process of learning the machine so that I could teach with it, I just totally fell in love with it. And the mobility, as you said, is one of the reasons, being able to just pick this up and look at it and turn it all around and, look at it straight, look at it sideways. Like
Mhm.
I love that. And the other big thing that's different is for the American machine, when you're going to cut the table, the table's at 0 degrees. So the stone has to be facing down, but you
Mhm.
can't, on almost any machine, you can't make the mast go straight down, because if you do that, and let's say you have a little flutter in your lap, it'll push up on the stone, but it can't go up because there's a gear holding it down and you'll break something. And I've
Mm.
done that on my machine, because my machine can actually go to 0, my polymetric, and
Right.
I have 2 holes in a polishing lap from doing that. The
Mm.
cool thing about this one is, if I put this on 0, which is the table, and I'm cutting, it's no problem. If there's any flutter of the lap, or I don't know, there's a little bit of diamond powder on there, or whatever it is, it just goes up. My hand goes up. I don't even
Right.
notice. So
Right.
not having to use that special table adapter, which all the American machines have to do, and being able to move this all around, that was for me, that was like a game changer. You know, I was like, after like 6 months of using this, I kind of just didn't use my other one anymore. And to this
Right.
day, like that's been about 4 years ago. I have not used that American machine at all.
Hmm.
You know, like
Now, what
I
about
just,
for doing like fantasy cuts? Like I'm thinking some of this stuff that John Dwyer does, and like the guys doing the competitions.
yeah.
How does that factor into the machine and the structure and the design of the machine?
Well, yeah. So when people are asking me to recommend a machine, I usually would try to figure out what's their goal, because if they're trying to do fantasy, there's only one option really. There's only one good one good machine option, and it's the Ultratech one. So if you're going to do that, just stick with the machine that was made for it. If you're going to do competition cutting and everything is about the perfection and everything, and you don't care about time or efficiency, then probably the American machine is better. But if you're trying to be quick, you're making a business, you're making money, or you just want to be fast, I like this one because it is all those things. It's not that expensive. But yeah, if you want to do fantasy, I've never seen, I mean, I'm sure someone has made this, but like there's no attachment to be able to put this plate onto a fantasy machine to do concave.
Right.
You could make one. In one of the factories that I've been to in Thailand, they actually have a jam peg concave machine, which I was just like, wow. But it makes sense because, like in the early 2000s, when the concave just came out, it sort of hit the world for a minute. And like all the factories in India and Thailand were doing that for like 4 or 5 years. Now it's sort of lost its luster, but they have their own machines to do that they've invented. And I think some machinists could do that. I mean, you guys could do that, but I'm not sure if there's a market, there's already one machine for that. Do we need a handpiece version of it? I don't know.
Well, I think because this is also really the question, like our goal is how do we get more people engaged and successful in the hobby, whether they're doing it as a hobby or whether they're doing it production. We have a lot more questions. They just keep coming in, Justin. So can you roll a little bit longer than past the hour?
I've got no time constraints. I'm just hanging out with you guys today.
Okay. So Matt had a question. Matthew, what are some materials that I can practice on until I feel comfortable working with actual gemstones?
I would say this is a great question. The stone that people usually answer with this is the wrong answer, which is quartz. If you're new, forget about quartz. It's cheap, but it's hard to polish. It's not the good first stone. Tourmaline. Garnets and aqua can be incredibly cheap. A sunstone as well. All of those stones can be incredibly cheap, down to $1 a stone. It's easy to get cheap garnets, cheap sunstones. And then you can use a real material. You can learn the pitfalls of what it is to use a real material that has inclusions and shape and everything else. And then, as you get better and better, you can just upgrade the quality. You can start with the dark red garnets that don't really look that good. You can start with the aquamarine that's so light that it turns white and nobody really, it doesn't have a high value. But then once you get better, okay, start spending a little bit more on the blue aqua, the nicer tourmalines. I mean, even tourmalines, you can get some pretty nice stones for $100 a gram. That's not very much for, when I was beginning, I was like actually thinking I'm investing in stones. I was thinking, okay, I will spend up to $100 on a stone. Now that has exponentially grown because I know that I can make money doing this now. But, I think if you can start with the dollar stone at Sunstone and then slowly move up to the $100 stones. And then if you're happy with $100 stones and you can start making money, then you start adding zeros. Now we're into I think every year we personally upgrade what we can do. A couple years ago before COVID, we got an $8,000 parcel of sapphires and we were just like, whoa, this is crazy. Like, I don't know. And then we cut those and flipped those. And now I think this year we spent $25,000 on a parcel of sapphires and we're like, okay, it's a little bit scary still, but we know that we can do it. So it's okay. So, but I started with the $1 and $10 stones, 6 years ago. So, but
Okay.
not quartz. Forget about the quartz.
Yeah. Jay Baz was asking, is your Ceylon, CEYLON machine available in the US? If so, where?
No, you have to order it directly from them, in Sri Lanka. But as I said, we're going to have a few in Tucson, I hope, if they get here in time.
Yeah.
So that's the only
Yeah.
way. But we're not shipping those. So if you want them, you have to come pick them up. It's too hard for us. It's too hard for me to reship, and it becomes too expensive. So
Yeah.
but
And shipping cost is
otherwise,
expensive. Like moving stuff across the pond is not cheap.
yeah.
Frank had a question. Looking at all the content on your channel, you inspired me to become a lapidary. And you get me pretty convinced of the Sterling machine too. However, I'm a total newbie. A philosophy teacher living in Amsterdam. Amsterdam is my favorite city, by the way. Great to meet you, which is more known for diamonds and colored stones. So I think that's just more of a comment from Frank. You got him going and inspired.
Sweet. Well, yeah, I think I'm happy. That's all I can say. I want to inspire as many people as possible. So I'm happy when I find out that it's working.
Yeah. Jim asked, do you see many hand piece machines in the US?
If we would go back about 4 years ago, I would say, nope, I never see any. But because I've been continuously talking about how much I like these machines, actually, there are quite a few people now. We've even got to the point where we've started a Facebook group just for handpiece users to talk about, the unique issues that we have. And I think there's like 2,000 people in that group. I don't think they all have handpiece machines, but a lot of them do. And we've been teaching on the machine for like 4 years. So, it's getting popular, especially I think now that we don't have a Graves option and we don't really have a Facetron option, unless you're going to spend $5,000, like this is less than $2,000. So it's the new entry level machine, except for it's actually a good machine. Whereas Graves, I think it was an entry level machine. That's all you can say.
Right. Then we've got a question here, handpiece. Guillermo in Colombia asked, I also want to know what stones do you recommend? I think we just answered that question for you. So love having Colombia in the house. I got tons of Colombian friends. David Klein asked the question, how much does that machine weigh? That particular machine? I plan to go to Tucson and carry it on the plane easily. Is that a planeable or is that just shippable?
Yes, I went to Sri Lanka for the machine that I use in Thailand. I actually went to Sri Lanka and picked it up and took it back in a rolling suitcase. It's about 19 kilos. I forget what it is in pounds. Must be something, I don't know.
40 pounds.
24 pounds.
Yeah. So
how much?
Let's see, 19 kilos. Oh, it's about 40 pounds in.
About 40 pounds.
Yeah. And the weight restriction is 23. So I was able to put this in bubble wrap and cardboard and put it in, take all the things off of it, put it in the rolling suitcase. And then I had the accessories in another bag. So it worked. And it was cheaper than shipping.
Yeah. Jim Gilbert asked, is the Raytech Shaw machine still available? I think it is. I think somebody put in the chat, Rick, and it is the guy's name, Rick. Rick Scott, I think he's in Littletown, Colorado. So I believe it is.
And somebody posted a link in the comments. You can go back and look.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dale was asking, Justin, if you could design your own machine, what would be the top 5 features? That's an interesting question.
I've been thinking about that. I want to design my own machine. Well, I have an idea now that I want to make I just want to make a new handpiece for this machine that has a couple extra features. Some of it, I just wanted cosmetic improvements. I want it to look cooler than it does. But this one doesn't have a fine angle adjustment. We use the plate to do it, but I wish that there was a knob here that I could turn for that. But personally, though, what I've been dreaming about right now, because I've been traveling all year with a faceting machine, and I've been thinking a lot about a portable faceting machine that you could take like in a backpack that wasn't like 19 kilos and didn't need to plug in. And I'm kind of like dreaming about, like I have this dream about going to Antarctica and faceting a stone. Maybe next year. I'm turning 40, so I'm thinking this is a good idea for when I'm 40. And I'm like, well, but I don't want to have to take all this junk, like what if there was another thing, and that's been kind of a fun idea. to think about. But I don't know, for me, the features need to be, it's well made, it works well, you know, it has all the controls that I want, and it's not too expensive. Because even now, you know, 6 years in and professionally cutting, like the thought of spending $5,000 or $6,000 on a faceting machine doesn't sit well with me. I don't like that idea for anybody. You know, I know people do it, and you know, whatever, that's normal, but like, I just don't like, I just don't want to spend that much money on a faceting machine. So I want a machine to be like reasonably priced. And I know that
Yeah.
like lots of other people do too.
Well, that's our philosophy too. Is like, if it's unaffordable, people are not going to get involved because they're priced out.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Right.
I
I
think
mean,
a lot of people are very intimidated with the price of a faceting machine, which is why,
right, because
I
it's
mean,
a
that's
big
the
mistake if you don't
yeah.
stick with it. I'm like, okay, my $4,000 now, maybe I'm gonna get $3,000 out of it, or 2,500 bucks.
Well, let me offer kind of a flip side to that, because you know, if you go up on Amazon or on eBay, there's all kinds of quote unquote facet machines coming over from largely from China, a few from Taiwan, and they're like $500 or something. So
Yeah,
when you
they're
say
not good.
well made, I think
it
for a
has
lot
to
of
be.
people that's very hard to discern.
Yeah, no, true. And that's why I would hope, I've written an article just about that machine, like about that Amazon machine. It's, let's just put it out there publicly, it is a piece of crap. Please don't even look at that machine, because you're just buying a door stopper, really. It's just it doesn't work, and it's not going to encourage you to continue on. So yeah, whatever machine people get, it has to work. Even if it's used, it has to work. And the $500 price point right now is not, it's not realistic.
No.
For there isn't a machine that cheap. You know, that's why we chose this one when we opened the school in Thailand, because we knew whatever machine we taught people on, that was what they were going to want to get. And if you try to get an Ultratech in Thailand, it's $7,000 because of the import duties and the shipping. Yeah, it's impossible. You know, like you could, my car wasn't even $7,000, you know, and I've been driving that thing across the country this year. So I can't expect every student that comes through to be like, yeah, I'm going to spend $2,000 on your class, and then let me drop another $7 on the machine.
Right.
Like, no, come on.
It
You know,
ain't
you're
gonna
going to need
happen.
a business loan for that.
Right. All right. JB had a question for you. Question: I learned the old way by eye about 40 years ago, and then I met point faceting as a concept came out. Huge change in precision technique. Has something now come up beyond meat point?
Well, that's a pretty good question. I mean, Meat Point came out in the early 80s, and it did change how people learned cutting in America. But to me, I mean, just to be totally frank and as respectful as I can, Meat Point faceting to me is like the training wheels on the bike. You know, like you learn with that, and then you can take them off and ride normally, right? And like Meat Point is like how you learn. Okay, make everything meat. Everything has to fit into it. But like if you actually have to go to work, which a lot of cutters do not have to go to work and cut stones, but like for instance, me, this week I just picked up stones from a customer. I can't make the faceted girdle. I can't take that much time to do them because it's too expensive. So I'm kind of using a hybrid method of like, okay, yeah, of course the points have to meet. Everyone in the world does that. But like, you know, I'm not building the stone that way, you know, in the Meat Point traditional way. I'm building a girdle, which utilizes the shape well, getting the good weight. And then I'm building a design off of that. And it's usually an improvised design. So no, I don't think anything's come after Meat Point. I think a lot of people are still doing Meat Point, but then there's also, I think, the old way, you know, whatever the old way is, that is the commercial cutting way, is just like building a design out of a piece of rough that has nothing to do with necessarily with a diagram.
Yeah.
And that's how we teach. You know, we tell the students on day one, like, I'm going to show you this diagram, and I'm going to teach you how to read it and use it. And at the end of this 2 weeks class, I'm going to wean you off of the diagram so that when you go home, you don't need it anymore, because otherwise it's like the training wheels. If you don't take it off, you're scared, right? Little kids are scared to take those off. And if you never do it, then you're just going to get really comfortable with that. And again, I say that with respect to all the cutters that cut that way. I'm not placing a judgment on it. I'm just saying, for me as a person that wants to become a master like the masters I'm learning under, I understand that you cannot stay inside of that system and
right.
get to the top, you know.
Right. All right. We've got a couple more questions here. Al was asking about faceting class. I'm not sure if Al was saying attend a weekly class. I would need to attend a weekly class in Massachusetts or doing 1 week program since I work full time. So I think Al's based here and was wanting to know, for training. Do you know when you do your training classes or what you would do, is all that that's probably in person, or is any of this stuff also online?
Well, since COVID, both. We do have a 2-week class that we do that's like a boot camp for, just you don't know anything, and then by the time you leave, you know everything as much as one can know. So we're doing that, and I think we're going to have one of those in Chicago after the Tucson show, maybe at the end of February or something. But then during COVID, we, obviously we didn't have any in-person classes, so we switched over to an online version or an online experiment. But what we've come up with now and what you can do now is we've made a video-based course. So you can be, if you can, we have a little video and a PDF that tells everything that you need. It's basically everything I have on this desk. And then if you have that and you get the video course, you can follow along step by step. And I walk you through the first stone, what all the things are, how to do polishing, how to do all these different cuts, how to do recutting. All the skills. And then the cool thing about the video course, we can go a lot further than we can go in 2 weeks in person. Like all the advanced courses I always was dreaming about, I was able to do those as video courses. So then, facetingapprentice.com, that's the website to find those.
Put that up in the chat as well, team. So let's see. Yeah, Rick Smith. So in that particular thing, fantasy cutting, he had a question about that's the hand not possible for fantasy cutting. I think we answered that. Al, we answered your question around the training class there. JP had a question, thoughts on polishing using ultralap type impregnated polishing polymer disc. It sounds like Gear Loose's stuff as well, right?
Yeah, there's a few. For me, polishing is like the place where everyone is divergent. Usually when you go into cutter studios, the thing that they have a lot of is polishing laps, like 100, well, maybe not 100, but dozens of polishing laps.
Right.
And you just kind of figure out what you like and what's available. And for me, because I have a sort of a historical focus, I don't use very many of the modern laps. Like I'm using traditional materials like copper, tin, and lead. Those are my 3 go-tos. I do have some of the, I have lots of Gear Loose laps as well, but I haven't used a lot of the polymer laps or the plastic, laps or whatever. So I can't speak about them too much.
Okay. Gotcha. Bruce Sturgis asked the question on that particular machine for the Tucson. What approximately is that machine going to cost?
I don't know yet because it's going to be dependent on the shipping and import duties, but it's just going to be whatever the machine costs plus the shipping and import duties. I think we're going to have a package deal where we have all the tools with it as well. So let's just imagine, I think it will be somewhere around $2,500 to $3,000, but it's the complete kit. Everything except for polishing laps will be there. All this stuff, and it will already be there, so you don't have to wait like a few months and pay the shipping and get some surprise import duties on arrival. It's all there. We don't know the price yet, though.
Yep. Let's see. Okay, so Joel says on YouTube, he says, I have a jam peg that I finished setting up outside, but I'm not sure about the distance from the jam peg to the disc. Any thoughts around the right distance?
I don't think it matters. I mean, as long as the stick can reach to the middle of the lap, or at least, to sort of the close to the middle of the lap. I think check out this video on YouTube, The Art of, I think she put it in the chat, The Art of British Gem Cutting. You'll see some really nice close-up shots of theirs. I mean, it's probably a hand span, from where the jam peg, where the peg sticks up to the middle of the lap or something like that.
Yep.
I'm not totally sure, but something like that.
Yep. And then there's some questions from Larry Ott. Hi, Larry, because I know Larry on YouTube. He's asking, when you think about the handpiece versus the mast, so you talked about a couple of distinctions there. What would be like the top 3 differences of the comparisons between those two things?
Okay, number 1, no table adapter. We talked about that already, but that's to me the biggest thing. Number 2 is just being able to pick this up. So many people who use this after using the mast have told me, oh, it's so nice to not have to always constantly trying to like get the reflection of the facet into the, you're constantly moving your head around like this, or moving your light around. And then when you're doing your girdle in the mast machine, you're constantly like doing this to see what you're doing. And this is so easy. I think, let's think, what would be the third thing? Price, I guess.
Right. Well, and I also think in a production environment, if you had a bunch of different machines set up with different laps, you could go from machine to machine to machine.
Yeah. Well, and in my studio in Thailand, I've got 2 of these hanging up on the wall, so I can do matched pairs. I can be doing 2 different projects, back to back. Like if I'm doing a project for work and then a personal project, I can have them both dopped up, and I don't need to have like 2 whole machines or something.
Yeah. All right. We just got a few more questions here. So Mark asked a question about, do you do classes in the USA? Do we have a link for people because there's also a bunch of questions around the faceting machine. So put the link on the chat, and also the QR code for people who are interested in getting on a list to knowing about both the faceting machine, and then that list will also share with you about the classes. We'll use it for both, because once you get figured out what you're going to do on your upcoming classes, like some of you guys want the classes because you're going to do the 2-week, the boot camp coming up in probably February, March timeframe. Right after Tucson in the Chicagoland area. So that would be a great opportunity to really go deep, because Justin is like well known around the world for what he does. So terrific opportunity to really learn from somebody who's been deep in it. So we'll put that link up here. Cool. You put that link. Oh, there's the sign up. So just put that link there. So that'll take you to page for those of you who are like, hey, when's this Highland Park machine coming out? I think, John, timeframe, you're really working to have that machine next year, right?
It'll be next year. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so, we can move fairly fast. You're bringing 9 machines out, 9 or 12 machines, 11 machines. I think this year you'll have kind of
11 new machines that we're introducing right now.
Yeah. So that's the question there. And then Guillermo asked about in choosing the types of disc for emeralds. He's in Colombia. Any thoughts there? And certainly, studying. I mean, I know there's also stuff that happens at the William Holland School of Lapidary Arts too. They've got some great instructors. But any thoughts there? Because he's also probably not going to fly from Colombia for maybe you can. It's actually not a bad flight.
Well, so I do a lot of emeralds. Emeralds is like my favorite. It's my favorite stone to cut and polish. So for emeralds, it really depends. Are they oiled? They're not oiled. If they're oiled, then you can be a little bit more flexible. But usually I just use a tin lap or like a lead tin lap and with diamond powder. But if they're no oil, then you have to be really, really careful, because you can't use oil, or stuff gets in the cracks, and you can't necessarily get it out. So in that case, I have a special lap that I use that actually, to go back to that question about using the resin bonded laps, this is when I use the resin bonded lap. I've got one, gosh, I forget what it's called right now. Lightning lap, the 14,000 lightning lap. That's like my secret weapon for no oil stones, because it's just a water drip. I don't really like the lap that much. Like I don't like using it. I don't like how it feels, but if I need to polish an emerald and I can't have any loose anything, you know, no
Yeah.
loose diamond, no loose oil, that's how you do it. And it's pretty fast.
Gotcha. Then we just got two last questions. One, Dale was asking, what's the power rating on the Sterling machine and how small of a motor can you get away with?
It's 220 volts. So when you get it to America, it comes with a step up converter to turn 220 into 110 or whatever. Power rating, I have no idea. I mean, it plugs into the wall. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if they're thinking about putting it onto a battery or something, you know, but
Yeah.
The motor's in there. So the motor, the speed controller's in there.
I think the question's really around the strength of the motor.
I'm not sure. I think that's on the website though.
Yeah.
I know that when I rev it up to, this can go up to 3,000 RPMs about, and when I rev it up that high, you definitely, you know, like you couldn't stop it with your hand, even around 1,000, which is what I'm usually running at 1,000 RPMs. It's pretty strong. Like I don't know the technical numbers, but like you can't stop it. You can't stop with your hand.
Yeah.
So.
All right, we'll get one last question, and that is actually I thought it'd be a fun question to end, which is for as a faceter, what's the most difficult stone that you've worked with, and why has it been difficult?
I think automatically my mind goes to cleavage. Basically, any stone that has cleavage is going to be hard. So that's kunzites, that's tanzanites, that's what do you call it? Like Turkish diaspora. Turkish diaspora has been probably one of the harder stones that I've had to do. I wasn't happy with the results. It was, you know, basically anytime you have a stone that has cleavage in it, and if you don't know about cleavage, this is where the gemology has to come in. You know, it's basically how the gemstone forms. It can basically peel off like an onion if you have it. So if you have your table, for instance, aligned to the cleavage plane, it can just start peeling off while you're trying to polish it, and you can never polish it. So any stone with cleavage is going to be the hardest one. Kunzite's really bad. It has 3 directions of cleavage. So when you diaspora is the same. So when you know where the cleavage plane is, it's here, and it's here, and it's here. So you have to tilt the stone in 3 different directions off one of those planes to make sure that your table's not going to align with it or whatever. So
right.
Those are always a headache. And
we could go on and on. So we've answered a ton of questions here, and we're at 8:22. So you guys got bonus tonight with Justin, and I certainly could see us doing a bunch more stuff together. Both in terms of collaboration.
This is like a good first interaction with us. So
yeah, that's absolutely. Great. I want to team, you know, if for you that are watching, if you like this, big thing that makes us happy, makes us like, I'm always jacked, is if you like this, go to the Highland Park Google page, put the link up in there, or you can put the QR code and give us a 5-star review. That just makes us look super stoked. And because it's really, for us, you know, obviously we're talking about all different kinds of information. We're not saying here's the only thing that's out there. And really, we like people giving us feedback. And also we ask that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, you know, because that pushes the algorithms. Hopefully we can also be doing more videos. And then you should also look to subscribe to Justin's YouTube channel. He's got a ton of really great videos up there. Do we have a link for Justin's YouTube channel that we can put up in the chat? There we go. Ooh, so you got QR codes, so you can scan those or photograph those with your phone and be able to pull that down. Justin, his YouTube channel is the Gem Cutter's Craft. So certainly subscribe to that, and so you know, this is a great way to learn more. And certainly, if you're also interested, where would they find out about your class for February? Would that be on your website, or what would be the best way for them to?
Yeah, facetingapprentice.com has all the class stuff. So whether it's the online class or the in-person class, they're both up there. And then we didn't really mention the book, but I
Yes.
have this book. The second edition just came out last week. It was sold out for a while, and now it's there. So that
So
one,
scan this on the QR code here.
perfect. Yeah.
And so that's the secrets teachings of Gemstone. So second edition. When did you do the first edition on this?
Last summer we did a Kickstarter, and
Yeah.
I think by the end of the year it was already completely sold out, the first 1,000 copies. So now
Yeah.
we've done another 1,000. So they just arrived like literally a few days ago. So
That's
just
great.
saw
And so,
them.
and they can order those just from that QR code there as well. I think they're
Yeah.
putting links in here. So there's the purchase of the book, which is great. So anyway, great resource. And certainly one of the things that we'll want to do is, look at other areas that we can be collaborating together.
I look forward to
Are you
it.
going to be out in New England here anytime?
I
I think the
don't
next time
think
we'll see
so
you is in
this
Tucson.
year.
We'll get together in Tucson.
Yeah, we're planning to do some more events in Maine, because Maine has such a cool history of gem cutting, and we met a lot of cool people there. So next time we're up in Maine, which I hope is sooner than later, I will come down and say hi to you guys in
Or I may
person.
come up there because we also work with we have a customers and also a museum up there that has doing some really cool stuff that
Yeah, that's where our stuff's going to be too, at the Bethel Museum. So
yes.
super cool.
Yep.
I
So
love
then
that's probably one of the
Bob
best
Ritchie's
museums.
up there too. It was a big spear
Yeah.
cutter.
Yeah, that museum is amazing. I think probably one of the best gem museums in the country right now. So anyone who hasn't been there, go up to Maine and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's great having you here. And thanks everybody for joining tonight. And of course, thank my awesome Highland Park team who's been working behind the scenes to make this happen. Everybody have a great evening. And Justin, we'll talk soon.
Okay, thanks for having me, and I'll see you guys later.